Welcome to Discovering with Dr. Deb. Our last season, we were discovering the Enneagram with Dr. Deb, and it was packed with a lot of information while also being a lot of fun to talk about and explore the Enneagram and why we do what we do. So go back and check out those episodes if you haven't seen them already. Here we are in season 2, and I'm going to be focusing on trauma and using EMDR therapy as a tool to help process trauma. My co-host for this season is psychologist Dr. Christie Sprowls from Austin, Texas. She has traveled all over the world to provide EMDR in humanitarian efforts, and she has also trained clinicians and providers in EMDR therapy. So get ready, let's dive right in and talk about trauma. All right, today we're going to talk with Dr. Christie a little bit more about EMDR. And one of the things, we didn't mention it when we did the episode on myths about EMDR, but we could have. We could have included this in that, is that sometimes people think EMDR is not very relational. They kind of think it's this like robotic kind of model of therapy, and that it's, you know, you're going to follow the dots, and there's just not this personal element to it. You know, it's not very relational. And I had some feedback just a week or two ago in a session with a client that really countered that. It really contradicted that aspect. And even though it's not like traditional talk therapy. We've talked in other episodes about when we're doing case conceptualization, how we spend a couple of sessions really connecting and building that therapeutic rapport with clients, which is crucial for the success of any therapy that you're going to do. And then you're doing some history taking, so you're using those relational skills, the reflecting, the paraphrasing, summarizing your nonverbals, and just all of that kind of stuff. And so you already have that going into doing BLS or bilateral stimulation with clients. And the compliment, I'm going to take it as a compliment, was that my voice was just really soothing, and it really set the tone for him to be able to just do the work that he needed to do.
Yes.
And really all we're doing once we start those sessions, and we're asking them to hold together the image of the target memory that we're using, and then the negative cognition, and then we just have them pay attention to that, what's going on within their body, what are they noticing, and then after that I just ask them to take a breath and let it go, and what are you noticing now? And that's really how I say it. So it is very relational. It does let them know still, you're still communicating to the client, I'm here with you, you're not alone. But what do you want to, what would you say to speak to that?
Well, I think you're exactly right. There's a misconception that about EMDR on many fronts, and that it is not relational. And I think in part that comes from the first weekend that we're doing trainings, because we're telling people to stop talking. Because as therapists, we have something we call the repetition compulsion. Right? We want to repeat what they say so that they know we really got it, and that kind of thing. And we're trained to do a lot of those types of things.
Yes.
So we're telling people to hold and put a button in their lip. And,
zip it?
Zip. And that's what I always say. I go, zoop, like that when I'm talking to a client. So the idea is that, it's very structured, and we have, we have certain ways we do things. Now, that's based on research, you guys, so it isn't about being bossy or, containing yourself, that kind of thing. These are, those scripts that we use have been studied for years and years and years, and as a matter of fact, we have, until COVID time, met all the trainers in the world, and this is for the EMDR Institute. We have met, it used to be a small group of us, now there's over 300 of us that are trainers all over the world. And anyway, we go through this formula over and over and over about how do we best teach it. So the first weekend's like that.
And also, I just want to, I don't want to interrupt, but I'm going to, EMDR is the most researched.
Yes.
Yes. And this is part of it.
Yes.
Right.
But that is having fidelity to the model, which I'm
Exactly.
glad you're bringing up, because actually you must do this. If you don't do it in this fashion, then you're not doing EMDR.
Right.
And let me tell you, there's lots of people out there who are not doing it correctly, and I don't mean to bash anyone in particular.
We're not naming names.
No names, but also, they're not doing it correctly because they're not having fidelity to the model. You'll have the best results if you do that. Now, that's the first weekend. So people think that it's just about this. I just noticed that, and keep going. Take a deep breath. Okay, here we go. So that's not at all what it's like. We are bringing ourselves fully to the session. My voice does soften when I'm doing EMDR.
Mine does too.
And therapy voice. I
Right.
call it my therapy voice. So you think it's all melodious and everything. I talk like really nicely. Anyway, but it's not on purpose. I'm not doing. It's just because this is serious.
It is.
This is intense.
And part of the reason I do it is I don't want to interrupt where their brain is going.
Yes.
I want this to really fully be their brain going where their brain needs to go. I don't want to interfere with that.
It has to be that way.
Right.
It has to be that way.
Correct.
Because otherwise you're just getting in the way of their brain going where it needs to go
Sure.
for healing. And actually this is the way a neural network is built. So some of you probably have, or maybe many of you have seen something like that. But it's kind of crazy. This is going on in our brain. And it's just building and building. And that's what we're doing. We're building positive neural networks. Okay, back to this. I have more to say on that. And we often are told that it's not relational because you're just sitting there doing this. And you're reading a script because initially we're asking you to read the script until you sort of have it in your memory network.
I've been doing it for years. I still read the script.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. And people do not feel like you're an automaton.
No.
They actually feel like you're being extremely helpful
They
and
do.
thorough. Okay, they really do. But more important than that, I've actually had people who I have trained in the relational model, and that's where I come from, honestly. That's, I studied this. But there's many things that I studied, all compiled now. But there's been some research that has been done because of the level that we go with people. And we are quiet and we're listening and we jot things down if we need to, that they're saying that they feel like that I'm really being cared for. I am being held by this therapist.
Yes.
The research shows that they actually feel closer to us as EMDR therapists than talk therapy. Because again, diving deep, we're holding the space for them. We are going to express ourselves. I do, and all of us should bring our whole selves to the therapy session, and we're going to say things like, if something is very poignant, I am so sorry that has happened to you, or that happened to you. Notice that, and we're going to keep going. So it isn't like I don't say anything, or it isn't that I'm not connecting to them. It isn't that I'm not making space for them. And it's not as automated as that, you guys. I even laugh in therapy with EMDR. We have big laughs. We have sometimes I even have a tear. Now some people say terrible therapist shouldn't have a tear. Well, I'm not saying, excuse me, wait, I need to take a moment because this is so... I don't do that, right? It is going to be, I can't help it. This is so sad.
This is very sad.
Right?
Or tragic.
Or tragic.
Yeah.
Or horrific.
Right. Absolutely.
And we are with them in their pain. So it is not non-relational.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a long diatribe.
No, but I totally understand that and agree with that. That's why I wanted to even have this episode because
good.
That is a myth. That is another myth that we don't. Another two, and we're going to have another episode just about doing it virtually. So I didn't do EMDR prior to COVID.
Yes.
Did my training when COVID first started. So I've only done EMDR virtually.
Yeah.
And I write down everything they're saying. This will come out in the other episode too about telehealth, but little snippet here for you.
Yeah.
I write down not everything, but the bulk of what they're saying. And one thing my clients like is the start of the next session. Sometimes they'll say, can you read back what we did last time?
Yes, absolutely.
Which really, again, lends itself to the fact that I heard. I heard the hurt. I heard the loss. I heard the sadness. I connected with that.
That's right.
And so it just lends itself to that aspect also. They weren't just, I turned on the dots and
sit back
and
over
they
here.
Yeah, and I was, filing my nails while they did their bilaterals to me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because and a lot of times too, when they click on that link, if they're on their phone or whatever, sometimes they can't even see me. They only see the dots when they click on that too. That's an aspect of it. And sometimes if they're on a computer, they can have two, but a lot of times they don't see me while they're doing it. And so it could feel like not relational or impersonal.
Yeah.
But I will make my comment, and I don't comment a whole lot while they're doing it, but they know I'm writing it all down. And so I'm present. And the other aspect I think too that's important to note is they're not going through this alone.
Yes, they have a witness.
They have a witness and they have somebody that's validating.
Yes.
That's their perception, that's their experience. And you alluded to in an earlier one, maybe even the first one we talked about what is trauma, I think you said there was a story about a little girl whose dad reached back to hold her hand, and her perception was it was traumatic because she thought she was going to get hit. It was not his intent at all. But that was her perception. And so just being present with them in whatever their perception is really powerful.
Yes.
And very relational, because the worst thing is not just having the experience, but then to think you're the only one that knows what that was like, or that felt that,
or was wrong to
or
feel
was
that way,
right, or shamed,
or even silly. Look, I shouldn't feel that way. I had a very nice family, or those kinds of things. The other thing that you're prompting me to think about is that in terms of relational, this is a collaborative effort, right? EMDR is not about, okay, come on, sit down, I'm going to tell you what to do. Now we're going to do this, and I think we should start here, and where that's the way it is, because we are going to be talking all the time. Listen, this is what's going on. And I don't mean like talking during the bilateral stimulation. I just mean at making decision points along the way. Are we going to follow that thread? Are we going to go here? How are you doing? It is collaborative. And if I know something that could be beneficial to them that they don't know, I'll tell them. And then they ultimately get the choice, right?
Yeah, and another thing too, sometimes we've done EMDR in the previous session. They come in, they're like, I just want to talk today.
Yes.
And I'm not going to go, no, we're in the middle of
That's right.
we got a phase here to get to, and no, it's and that happens really.
I know.
Quite a bit. And it's like, okay. And sometimes they want to talk about the EMDR, and sometimes they just want to break from it, and because it's like, I've got a lot of stuff coming up. I've got my kid's wedding, or I've got a graduation or whatever, and
Absolutely.
I just don't want to go there. I'm like, totally fair, fair. Whether it's not my place to agree or not agree, it's like, okay, but I'm going to do what the client wants to do.
That's right.
And so sometimes we may take a week or two and then come back to it. And that, that speaks to the collaborative nature of it. We want to do what the client wants to do. And then, like I said, sometimes they will have some realizations. I have this with one client, and he was like, okay, I remember last time I talked about this and this. And I may read back, like I said, what they did, and they will have this connection. And they'll like go, oh my gosh, and have this realization, and they want to talk about it.
That's right.
And it's totally fine to do that.
Yes.
I'm not doing the bilateral stimulation. They're not activated. We're not doing anything with their, neural network or anything at that point. And it's totally fine to do that. And that's, again, speaks to the relational nature of that therapeutic relationship and meeting the client where they're at.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what else? It's interesting that you are saying that, because connections are made. There is going to be times when you want to just talk about the aspects of the therapy that happened after the last time you met, or you're exhausted, and as you said, you have many things that you've got going on. Not appropriate to do EMDR, and it's okay. But also, and when we talk about EMDR, it isn't all this. It's also doing the talking after a session when they want to do that. That's also EMDR because they're talking about what's going on and they're bringing the changes or even the challenges. So people have the misconception it's just all this.
Yeah.
No, there's so much more that goes on.
Well, and I had one client, and we were 2/3 of the way, and how far we usually go with the bilateral stimulation, and he goes, "Okay, I'm gonna break script here," And I was like, "Okay." He goes, "Can we do that?" And I'm like, "Sure."
Yes.
Because he had an epiphany.
Yes.
Okay, well, tell me about it.
Absolutely.
And then we went right back into it. So there is some flexibility within it.
Absolutely.
We're still staying true to the model. Which, like you said, the fidelity to the model is just really important because that's where the efficacy is. That's where that's what's been researched. That's what's been proven. That's where they're going to get the best result.
Absolutely.
But it does lend itself very much so to a relational model, and so for people that are very person-centered, Rogerian, it's a good model. And another thing too, like the book, it's like EMDR therapy.
Yes.
Speaking to the fact that it's its own therapy.
That's right.
It's a lot of times people think it's just an add-on. But when Francine kind of created this model, it can be a standalone.
Well, what's interesting about that is this too. A lot of times people change the whole way they're asking questions. They're changing their whole, EMDR becomes their therapeutic model because they can see, and I have had this happen so frequently, that the people will come in and the questions that I ask them, they go, I've been to 3 other therapists about this. And just hearing you ask me the questions you've asked me, which are EMDR questions, I can feel a shift already that I wasn't able to feel. We hadn't even started the bilateral stimulation.
Right.
So it's pretty interesting. And I'm not telling people, you must have this theoretical orientation.
Right.
No. Because in fact, there's even a book out that was written, it's been many years now, but it is about how EMDR dovetails with whatever theoretical orientation you have.
Yes.
And I know this is the public, but this is just so that they know that, like, if you're person-centered, if you're a relational model, if you're
CBT,
use it.
Yeah, you can.
You can.
Yeah, but it can be a standalone.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
and I think that's kind of a little unknown secret, honestly.
Well, thank you for mentioning it.
So that's something new. I bet you didn't know, but I hope you learned something else new, and I hope this was helpful for you. So we'll see you in the next episode. If this content has been helpful to you, I'd appreciate it if you would please rate the podcast, post it, and share it on social media. And also post a review. If you'd like to get in contact with me, my phone is 479-561-7600, or email Dr. Deborah at anchoredhopecounseling.net or Dr. Deborah at drdebfordoctors.com. Our website at www.anchoredhopecounseling.net has some useful information, and you can also reach out to me through the website. Remember, you are enough just the way you are, and you are loved.